Hello, everyone. This is Conversations with Rob. Please like and subscribe our videos. Another interview here that will be put on the radio also. If you're a fan of me and listen to me on the Delaware shows, you'll definitely probably have heard this interview a couple months back. This is Hana Weltin. She is a local Rhode Island resident and a very intelligent one at that. So we'll talk about that as the interview rolls on. And her mom, Patricia Weltin, is here also. She's going to talk about her organization later on in the interview about that. But first of all, let's just tell you a little bit, and she can tell us more about herself as the interview rolls on. So Hana is a high school student at East Providence High School. She got a 1600 on the SAT, which is pretty impossible for me. I know I sat through that SAT, and I was just looking around at everybody and saying, you know, what the hell am I doing here? And I was bored out of my mind. But so congratulations on that. And also, I know I've heard through the grapevine that you just got awarded to apply to the U.S. Presidential Scholars, which is only for 4,500 students out of 3.6 million. So congratulations for that, Hana.
Thank you.
All right, so Hana, let's get into the thick of things. I know we just said a little bit to the viewers about yourself, but if you could just tell the viewers in your own words about yourself.
I'm 20 years old. I had to stay back in high school because I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and postural orthostatic tachycardia. About 3 years ago, I had brain surgery. I just got back my senior year. I did 3 classes last year and 4 classes this year. So that was perfect score. It was just great for me, for my confidence.
She missed 2 years of school as well.
Right. So
she missed entirely 2 years.
Right. So Patricia, I want to first get into that too. And like I said, whichever one of you guys thinks the question fits you the best, you guys can kick it around. So first of all, like I said, I don't know which question this will fit, either Hana or Patricia. When did you notice something was going on as far as the connective tissue disorder? Did you see it or feel it? How did that work?
I think I can answer that best.
Sure.
She was always really, really hypermobile as a kid. She used to, when she was young, she would dislocate her shoulder and lick her elbow. Right. Which you can imagine, it's pretty hard to lick your elbow.
Right.
So we thought it was great. We thought it was a stupid human trick, and we thought, you know, let's get her on David Letterman, and it was funny because she wasn't in any pain. And it really wasn't. Did become apparent until my older daughter got really sick and was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That, you know, hypermobility is a huge issue for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. There's usually 4 major issues with EDS, and that's POTS, which Hana has, mast cell activation syndrome, which Hana has, gastro issues, which they don't have, and hypermobility. So when we knew she had it, I said, oh my God, Hana's the most hypermobile person I've ever known. And so immediately took her out of tennis, which is really damaging to your joints, and put her in physical therapy that was specific to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So we were lucky because we were able to be proactive with Hana, but she still started dislocating. Her joints started dislocating, I think.
Summer after sophomore year.
So you were 16. And that's when she had it, and it was her hip. I will never forget the day. She said, I think my hip just dislocated. So then she started really suffering from her junior year from the POTS symptoms and cranial cervical instability. She was actually bedridden for 6 months. Completely, like, this kid couldn't add 2 and 2. Never mind get a 1600 on the SAT. And she did take the SAT while she was sick with this brain fog and all the other issues she was having, and she got just better than me still, a 1250. And we joke around and say to her neurosurgeon, you know, like, what did you do when you were in there? Because you created a perfect score taking, you know, robot here. But she was, I mean, she reads a lot. She couldn't read anything. She couldn't string 2 sentences together. It was really difficult to watch someone, you know, as bright as she was, just go you could see in her eyes that she just wasn't there anymore. And it was getting really bad. And they were trying to do other things besides surgery because they're really cautious before they do these kind of really invasive surgeries. So we were doing, traction through physical therapy and some other things, and nothing was working. And they were worried that her cognitive loss would become permanent. So they, did the surgery, and immediately she asked for a book. And I knew she's better.
So Patricia, let me ask you this. What was the story when you spoke to all these doctors and they were telling you, did they even know really what was going on? I know we talked earlier on the phone about this a couple months back, and you said you were kind of ahead of the curve with a lot of these doctors knowing what was going on before they did.
Always. Like I said, my oldest was sick from birth. She had a lot of issues with, they were saying it was chronic sinusitis, and they kept doing surgeries on her sinuses. She needed 7 sets of tubes, and they kept doing it. And I kept saying, well, why? Why did she have that? And then one day I said, I think she has allergies. So I took her to an allergist and said, your daughter's off the chart. She wasn't presenting like someone with allergies. She didn't constantly have, watery eyes and sneezing. But she did have, at night, she had postnasal drip. So, but then they kept saying it's because she has chronic sinusitis. Well, I wasn't buying it. It wasn't explaining it to me. And so that's how we came to, that's actually mast cell activation syndrome is what she actually has. And then when she was 18, her teeth started falling out. Olivia, my oldest, was a Division I, #1 doubles player, tennis player. And she was experiencing pain in between her shoulder blades that took us to the emergency room. It was so bad. And she's not somebody, by that time, she'd probably had 15 surgeries in her lifetime, and never complained. So unnecessary. I mean, I'm the one that stopped it. They probably would have kept doing all those things if I didn't just say, I think it's allergies. And so when she went to the maxillofacial specialist, they did a scan of her whole around here. And the radiologist, thank God, called me and said, your daughter has Chiari malformation. And I thought, what is that? And so I started looking at it, and Olivia had already had a tethered spinal cord. So, I was like, I was in a group, and I was like, oh my God, all these people have tethered spinal cord, and they have Chiari, and they have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I already was aware of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I had been to a conference with a friend who had it because I was working in the rare disease space. So I'm like, it cannot be that these kids have right under my nose this whole time. And, their dad was super hypermobile. I used to call him Gumby. Like, how can you bend your fingers back like that? Like, it was just weird. And so when I figured out Olivia, I immediately called Hana down and did a Biden scale, which is a measure of hypermobility. And Hana got a 9 out of 9. And that's when I was like, oh my God, this is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I actually Googled oral manifestations of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it came up aggressive periodontitis, which is what Olivia was suffering with. And I called their doctors, and I was like, she had a whole team, Olivia, and I said, it's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And they researched, and they were like, I think you're right. I think it's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Right. So it seems like there wasn't that much research done, or is there a lot of research done on these diseases?
There isn't. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is not really a rare disease. I believe that, and a lot of people believe that fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome are really, like the POTS is really probably diagnosed often as chronic fatigue syndrome. There's a lot of people that have lupus that are misdiagnosed as lupus, and they really have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. A study just came out in Wales that it is really, it's not rare at all. One doctor believes that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men. And at this point, this particular doctor, who's been studying it his whole life, has said he believes 95% of people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome have not been diagnosed yet.
Now, let me ask you this. Is this more of a hereditary thing that you think?
Disorder, but I believe that there are environmental stressors at play. So, because what I'm seeing in this community is, like my ex-husband had it. His dad was born with dislocated hips and a club foot, which is a classic sign of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. But his sister has type 1 diabetes, which is also something that I find is linked to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So what we're finding now is, it affects everybody in the family. It's not a 50-50. Every kid is getting it, and every generation appears to be getting worse. So, her grandfather lived to be 76, and he died from heart disease. He didn't die from Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. But there are kids being born now that are, these guys had a pretty good childhood. Olivia had some issues, obviously, with her mast cells, but, they had a pretty good childhood. Hannah had an excellent, she was rarely sick, except for anaphylactic allergy to nuts, which is, she has mast cell activation syndrome. So, that's what I think is going on. I think a lot of people are starting to come to that. Other people have come to that conclusion before me, that the driving force behind it might be whatever's activating the mast cells. And I think a lot of people might have this genetic component that gets triggered. Either a lot of people will say, hormones, having a baby, they didn't have any they had mild symptoms until they were either in a car accident or something like some people get it after having Lyme disease. The symptoms, they will have it and there will be history in the family, but the symptoms become really pronounced after a virus or something like, and for my kids, it was puberty.
So since this is happening to so many people, what is the cure like as far as this disease goes?
There's not even they're not even close to finding what the gene is. There's a theory out there that I believe, but they're not even close. There's very little real research about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So they're decades away from a treatment.
Wow. Because we hear all these diseases and, stuff that we've just talked about with you. There's autism, all these other diseases that's just hitting kids and, it's 1 out of 80 and stuff like that. What do you, I know you're not a medical doctor, but I know you've done a lot of research on a lot of these diseases. What do you feel like this is geared to? I know you said a little bit about environmental stuff, but do you feel like that's a big part of it?
Look at this planet. Look at our food. Look at our food supply, GMOs, and everything's processed. What we're eating. I was a stay-at-home mom, so I was feeding them, everything, even their granola I made from scratch. So everything was whole foods that I fed them, and who knows what their life had been if we didn't have the luxury of me staying home and doing this. Like when I bought meat, it was all grass-fed, organic, and but if you look at even what we drink, the water supply, the air we breathe, how can we not expect that we're going to be sick? How can we think that our bodies can withstand this barrage of toxic, environment? The planet can't withstand it, but we're supposed to.
Well, one more question about this, and then I want to get back to Hannah. And thank you for standing by the conversation between me and your mom. My last question is, Olivia also had a lot of issues as far as Hannah. How did the medical bills? We heard about this Medicare for All. It's been going on, which I believe in, and I know we've talked about politics before. And the prices of healthcare. We talked about Hannah having brain surgery. I don't even know what Olivia went through, but I'm sure she's had her surgeries and the cost is up. Say again, I'm sorry.
We just had brain surgery a month ago, Olivia.
Yeah. Right. So, this has got to be extremely expensive for you, your family. How did the medical costs go on, if I could ask about that?
Well, we're lucky because we have really good medical care for now, knock on wood. I worry about when they only have Medicaid because I'm pretty sure they're not going to be able to get private insurance based on they're on disability, so they have Medicaid. And, but I will say it has absolutely hindered my ability. I'm a single mom. I can't work a regular job because I'm off, we have doctor's appointments. We were going for her surgery for a month in New York. No one wants to hire someone who can't work. So that's been really, really hard now that they've aged out of like the Ronald McDonald House. When we went for the last brain surgery, we had to cover all of the costs. It's thousands and thousands of dollars to travel to the specialists that we need to see, because there's only a few doctors in the world that will do the surgery that they both had. And he is on Long Island. So, you know, we had to get there. We had to have a hotel, you know, the food, the cost of the food. It was extraordinary. It was an extraordinary expense. And it's very, very difficult. I think that for most people with rare diseases, one of the number one stressors is financial burden.
Right. And how about finding a doctor that even does that kind of care? Because as you said, it's rare diseases, and I'm sure there's not that many doctors that even, you know, look into that type of care.
That's absolutely right. So you in this space, you have to travel. You have to see, find it. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to go out of state to find someone who can care for your child.
Right. Well, that just pleads the case right there in 2 minutes about why we need Medicare for all. So not much, not much need to be said on that.
But you still would have which I think about a lot, like, okay, Medicare for all would be great, but how am I going to cover my travel expenses to the doctors? Which I think that if, you know, we could get some attention on this, we could address it, because I don't think they realize how many millions of people have to leave the state. Ronald McDonald House is a godsend. I think there should be something available like that to adults as well.
Now you spoke to, sorry to interrupt you, Patricia, you spoke to a lot of politicians about this. What is the sense of this through the politician aspect? Have you talked about any funding? Is it just like kind of pushed under the rug? It's not a big deal. What's the story with that?
It is. I think they have no understanding of, I mean, they hear the facts. Oh, you know, 30 million people in the United States have a rare disease. They hear those facts, but it goes in one ear and out the other ear. The financial impact on this country is in the hundreds of billions of dollars for people with rare diseases. I think they don't have an understanding of how we're living. You don't hear anybody talking about it. And it falls on deaf ears. People, when they hear rare disease, think uncommon. So they kind of push it under the rug. And then it becomes very, very, very complicated. These diseases, the disease names, the way these diseases operate, they're not what we're used to hearing. It's not like talking about diabetes or cancer or anything else. It's so foreign to everybody, which is why it's so important for me to raise awareness to everyone about how we live.
Right. So let me get back to Hana, as I said a little while ago. So how does this, you know, you've been going, this disease happened to you a while back. How does this affected your day-to-day life, your school life in general?
This year, I think I haven't gone a full week to school. I've been out at least one day of the week.
Right.
Entire year. So I don't make it to school all the time. I am really tired when I get home, because physically being at school for hours is just a lot. And then I'll often be too tired to finish homework, so I need extra time. It's affected me a lot.
Now, how is sorry to interrupt you. How is the understanding by the teachers? I mean, we'll go through the East Providence fiasco a little bit later on, but how is, as far as teachers goes, are they kind of respectful of knowing what you're going through, kind of giving you that extra time? Or is it just a mix of different teachers? Some are and some aren't?
The teachers are actually very understanding. I've gotten a lot of late work that they been very understanding about.
And she has a 504 that protects her and gives her those
that extra time that I need.
Right.
All right, good. I didn't even know about that.
Bring water into class and.
Right. Okay, so then let's go into quickly more, and like I said, we'll get into the East Providence fiasco in a minute. As far as the brain surgery rent, you know, that's got to be scary. You're going in. I can't even fathom some of the stuff that you and your sister went through, and you know the faith that you have to have in these doctors. That one, you know, small move, they could kill you in plain English. How do you keep faith and hope? Because most people like me are scaredy cats, you know, compared to, and are scared, you know, would be fearful as anything to even go through some of the stuff that you and your sister went through.
Before the surgery, I had been bedridden for 6 months, and I think I was more afraid of not having the surgery than I was having the surgery.
Wow.
She was pretty sick. Yeah. And the same with my older daughter. She was in so much pain. She welcomed the surgery.
Yeah, it's a relief.
It was me that was up nights vomiting and having panic attacks that something would go wrong.
Yeah. So when the surgery was over, when obviously they put you out, when you finally woke up, uh, how did you feel? Was there any kind of difference you felt right away, or was it
Um,
just kind of the same old?
it was like waking up from being like sort of asleep. It was just I felt alive again for the first time in months.
Right.
It was immediate. It was almost immediate.
Now, and you can correct me if I read this incorrectly. Now, this takes 18 months to fully get rid of all the bad symptoms that you had in the past. Is that correct? Or
It's about a 18-month recovery period from the surgery itself.
Yeah, the
okay,
surgery, because they, the incision goes from the top of your head right down through your neck.
yeah,
A lot of what my daughter is dealing with is muscle spasms. So the surgery, it's the healing from the surgery, not necessarily the healing from what she was going through before, which was
oh, okay,
instability. It's more about healing from the surgery, because they tend to heal. They don't heal as well as a lot of people. They have issues with their mast
right.
cells, everything worse. So when you're in pain and you're a stressor, your mast cells might flare up, causing. So it's for EDSers, surgery is a pretty big deal as far as recovery.
So how has the recovery been for you and, I know Olivia's not here, but for you and her in general?
I healed very well from the
Okay.
surgery, and Olivia's been doing great. She there was some problems in the beginning, but she got over them, and she's doing great.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a
Slow
big
but
difference? Sorry, go ahead.
Slow but steady.
I'm
That's
slow and
all we
steady
have
now, I
for.
hear you. Do you feel like the surgery, I know you said that you were bedridden all that time and you were really hopeful to get that surgery done. After that surgery, and and have you improved a lot, or it's been steady slowly, or?
I have improved a lot. I couldn't make it back to school that first just after I had the surgery that year after, because I had the surgery in March. I couldn't go back I tried to go back in September, but couldn't finish the school year. So it was slow and steady, yes, but eventually I did get back much better off than I was before.
Okay. All right. So let's go into the 1600. So you took the first test was 1250. I don't even know what the heck I got on my test, but I know I did a lot of guessing, a lot of circles because honestly, let's be realistic. This doesn't show, from my opinion, these tests are like a bunch of silliness. People should grade you what you know in school rather than what you know on a silly standardized test. So for you to get a 1600 on a perfect score on this test that is like impossible for about 99.99% of the people, even get probably a halfway decent score is impressive. So you took the first test 1250. When you go into the second test, what were you thinking?
I was nervous. I was very nervous going in, but I did get accommodations, so I did have extra time. I was allowed more breaks and drinks and food and stuff. So that was helpful. And I was taking the test. I was sure that I was getting some wrong. I changed a few answers, changed it back. I thought I did well in the math, but not as well as the English.
So then when you got the test back, or I don't know, did they send it online, or when I got it, they sent it through the mail?
It's an online score you can check on.
Oh, it's an online scoring. Okay, I got mine in the mail.
6:30 in the morning when she got the score. She came in my room, threw her phone at me because she knew we didn't believe it. And I told her, "Oh, sweetie, I don't think this is your score. I think this is a score you could get."
Yeah. So then what happened? I mean, obviously, you look at it a couple of times, the score doesn't change. It's the same score. Do you call them up?
It took us weeks to believe
I kept
that.
Periodically, I just check.
She would keep refreshing it, like, is it still 1600?
Did you get a letter from anybody saying, hey, that's a perfect score? Any kind of acknowledgement that, hey, this is a big deal?
No.
Not even from the company that runs this test?
No.
Oh, wow.
No, but I did post it online and it went viral, and the post got 5 million views. I posted on LinkedIn, which I was shocked. And I spent days I was like, I feel like your agent. I'm just answering all these questions for you. People are, want to know who her tutor was. I'm like, she was her tutor. You know, what programs did she use? Could she help them get a perfect score? And but 5 million people viewed it, and there were tens of thousands of it was almost 80,000, I think, reactions and thousands of comments, which I was so, you know, I think I put, oh my God, my daughter got a perfect score, and I had a picture of the screen, and I put disability does not mean inability. So, and I had a lot of EDSers reach out to me, which was amazing. But it was just shocking to us. You know, we were just, it still is. You know,
no, I was just going to see.
It's hard. Perfect is hard. And for someone, and I'm going to be really honest right now, and probably shouldn't be, but I don't think she studied. I mean, I was shocked at how little she was studying. And I was saying, you need to study because we need scholarship money. And she's so I'm like, you need to study so that you can get a good score on the SAT. It's so she didn't really, which is kind of upsetting. I would like to say she's worked really hard and stayed up all night studying for SATs, but she just kind of went in and did it.
I don't even know how you studied.
She did some practice tests. Well,
you look at those books, and you see those big books, and if it was me and I see the book that's like whatever 400 or 500 pages with all that junk in it, I just throw it back on the bed and walk away. But for you to even study and look at it, I mean, I commend you for that. But I find it insane, and we'll talk more about this, that nobody from the high school, rather, gave you any kind of recommendation or said, hey, you know, congratulations. Nobody around the state. I mean, this should be a big thing. And I told this to your mom a couple of months back that, you know, the governor's office or anybody should have kind of gave you some sort of, you know, congratulations. And for that not to happen, that is disgraceful on not just East Providence, but the whole state.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Providence Journal did a story.
Right, yeah.
Exposed the school. And they had not even told anyone in the school that she got a perfect score. They never told any of her teachers. They never told anyone. You know, that's something I would think they would announce. Hey, we have a kid that got a perfect score on the SAT. You know, let's all give
publicity for the school.
Disabled. Let's give them a hand, you know, a round of applause for this kid. And you know, I think it's inspiring. You know, it would be inspiring to other kids that might be struggling. Like this kid's struggling, and she still managed to get a good score. And you know, we weren't surprised they did that because of everything that had happened before. But when the article came out and they were exposed for discriminating against her, that's when the superintendent of schools made a public, I think it was something on Facebook, their Facebook, about Hana. But not before that, not before they were, you know, before that they were sticking to their guns that they were not going to acknowledge anything about her.
Well, I'm going to say congratulations, Hannah, because I could take that test 100 out of 100 and I would never get a perfect score. So. And that could be with weeks and months of studying. But let's get into the discrimination case, whichever one of you feels fit wants to talk about that. And I know you went against, almost it was like a trial, if you could talk about this, Hannah, that I know that you kind of went up against these people, these adults, and stood your ground and kind of went in some kind of trial format. I know your mom told me that. But first, talk about that case, if you could.
Well, they graduated me last year. They tried to graduate me, and they had not informed me at all that I would be graduating. I was under the impression I would be going back and finishing the school year, another school year, to get my 28 credits that they offered to everyone that they were not giving to me. I had 24 credits, which is what I graduate. And so I was actually like, I wasn't going to do it originally. I wasn't going to.
Can we just go back a little bit? This is how we found out she wasn't going to school, that they graduated her. In May, she said, she called the school and said to her guidance counselor, Rob Travers, and said, hi, Mr. Travers, I'm calling to find out what classes I will be taking next year. And he said, I don't know what classes you'll be taking. You don't go to school here.
Wow.
That's how we found, you're not going, you're not going. No, he said, you're not going to school here.
I am, no,
Okay, you said,
Yeah, go to school. You said you're not going. Okay, whatever. I'll forget it.
all right.
I'm confused.
Same difference. So anyway, that's how we found out. And it was in May. So we had made no preparations for college. Clearly,
Yeah.
this is a kid that should go to college. No
Of course, yeah.
preparations, no, no anything. We just were like, oh my God, now what? I mean, we gave up. We started thinking, what can we do now? Like, where can she go to school in September? Until we figure out what we should be doing. I didn't want her to not, she was starting to get back into school and learning, and this is what she loves. She loves math, and I don't know why, and science. I don't know whose kid she is, but anyway, she loves that stuff, and she loves being in school, and she loves reading, and she was just getting really back into her life the way it was before, and I didn't want her to have a gap of a year. So we were trying to figure out, where can she go? Should she go to CCRI for, some classes? Because we could have gotten in there. And she was not going to fight them. She didn't want to fight them at first. And you can.
It was actually just on a whim. I just didn't feel like I had anything to lose if I did. And I didn't think that I could win, because they all had people saying that what they were saying was true. I know it's just my word against theirs, and I didn't think I could win that. But I also didn't feel like I felt like I had to do it, because I didn't want them to get away with it. And what did I have to lose? They had everything to lose. So it was worth the risk to do it.
Right. Which is pretty sad that they would do that against somebody that's had all the issues in the past that you had to try. That's like a strong arm tactic, it seems. So let's talk about this. Why do you feel, I guess, and this is to either one of you, they were so fixated on getting you out of the school? It seems like as I said, they had no compassion of the situation that, you and your sister Olivia and you were gone through. I'm sure they knew everything that's going on family-wise, but it seems like they had no compassion.
We still don't know why they tried to kick me out. We have no idea. They just
Wow. So
I don't know if it's a burden on them financially, that they don't get some kind of. I mean, she wasn't getting any services. I was bringing her back. She wasn't even using the bus. I was driving her back and forth to school. So it wasn't like she was costing them anything except for a spot. And I don't know if they just wanted somebody else in her spot. The superintendent of schools told me that Hannah was a threat to the other kids in the school. I know, look at her. Because of her age. I'm like, she's been in bed for 3 years. All of these kids have had more life experience than she has. So because she's been, basically in bed. So I don't know how she can be a threat. They were very, very cold-hearted. It was cold.
Besides that, did you have any run-ins with any of these people, Hannah? Did they act disrespectful to you? Or give you the cold shoulder, or how did it work?
Before that or after that?
Say again?
Before or after?
Before or after, both.
Before that, everything was fine. I mean, they didn't like me. That was obvious, because I was fighting for a 504 for her. I was fighting for, I was always in there fighting for her. So at the time, she could barely speak. So I was.
Well, as a parent, they should expect every parent to fight for their children, especially in that kind of situation. But apparently, they don't know what's going on in schools. But I do want to ask you this about the situation. So they didn't let you back in. You were going back and forth with them. How did it feel going against people that were a lot older than you? I'm sure they had their own lawyers and their own people that were pushing back against you, the superintendent, you got the principal. It's pretty much the whole city of East Providence against you.
2 of her guidance counselors.
Wow.
And the assistant superintendent of schools. It was really shocking. So at the meeting, it was she filed a complaint with the Round Department of Education. Appeal. That's what she did. She filed an appeal. And then we had a hearing, and there was the hearing officer was there, and the assistant superintendent of schools the two guidance counselors, the principal, and their lawyer. And when we sat down, I said to the lawyer, you know, how long do you, because of the parking, you know, in downtown Providence, I was like, how long do you think this is going to take? And he said, probably an hour. I think he might have said under an hour, around an hour. And I said, okay. And then 4.5 hours later, I'm thinking it's not going very well for you guys.
I was really nervous going into it because they did have a lawyer and I was acting as my own lawyer. And I'm not very outgoing, or I'm very shy. I am very, this stuff, I'm very, I have a lot of social anxiety. So doing that was very nerve-wracking going into it. But when it was happening, I just sort of got mad and I just went for it.
She was like an attorney. She cross-examined all of them. She was taking notes, and I was like, oh my God. She actually, at one point, I went to whisper something. She's like, I have this. I was like, oh my God, who is this kid?
Patricia, do you feel like they were trying to milk the clock because she does have that condition? Maybe she would have to leave. Maybe you guys would just say, forget about it. Do you feel like that was the reason why they said, oh, 1 hour, and then it turned to 4? It was just kind of Rhode Island slowness.
No, they were desperate. They were clearly, and the questions that were being asked by the hearing officer were completely fair. And, you know, they kept saying that they emailed her that she was graduating, and that they emailed her about all the things that you get when you're graduating. Like, you know, this is when graduation ceremonies are. She never got any of those emails, and they could not provide any emails proving that she got them. And we kept saying, I didn't get any, she didn't get any. So the hearing officer was very impartial, which I thought they were going to be more, you know, for the school. Right. And they were she was amazing. And I kind of looked at Hannah at one point, and I'm like, I think she knows the truth. You know, like, I think she knows that they're lying. And was asking questions, and then when she would ask, they were getting caught in their lies. So, but we still didn't think it would go our way because, you know, we thought it's the Rhode Department of Education. They're not going to be fair. And they were more than fair. They were amazing. And of course she ended up winning, which was, they were not. Yeah.
So how did you feel going back to school when you know that they lost to you? You went in there and basically kicked butt. And they feel like they lost to a kid where they had their own lawyer. You were going against the principal and the two guidance counselors and the superintendent, and they all lost. And then you go back into the school. Was there any hostility, do you feel? Maybe not to you, but did you feel kind of that hostility at all? And was there any?
She was verbally accosted by the principal. The principal was slapping her hands like this in Hannah's face while Hannah was sitting down. What didn't I do? What didn't I do? And that's when I stood up. But she started crying.
And this was at the school?
Yeah, this was at the school.
Wow.
Hannah was sitting in a chair, and the teacher was standing, the principal, Shani Wallace, was standing above her, slapping the back of her hand, saying, what didn't I do for you? I offered you to have a place to relax in between classes, and what didn't I do for you? Like, that's not the issue. Oh, I know why we're in there, because they wanted us to bring in a new letter from our doctor, and they didn't give us any notice before the 504 meeting.
We had like 3 days notice over the weekend.
Over the weekend. They told us on a Friday we had to have it by Monday for a new 504. And I'm like, you just set us up to fail. And then that's when she started getting angry and slapping her hand and in Hannah's face. And Hannah was sitting down, and Hannah started to cry and got up and walked out into the hallway. And Shani Wallace followed her out into the hallway.
Wow.
And we called Adult Disabled Services, and I asked, is this considered abuse? And they said, absolutely. You can't, and she works with kids. She couldn't control herself. I went right to the superintendent of schools. She is not allowed to go, her or the guidance counselor, Rob Travers, are not allowed to go anywhere near Hannah. It makes it awkward at school. But that's the way it is. They are not allowed near her.
Wow, that's crazy.
It was
that's
actually,
really
in regards to the medical letter, we had to set up a new appointment for the 504, so we had time to get the letter. And then during the 504 meeting, towards the end, we had set it all up, and they forgot to ask for it. They didn't
Yeah, they didn't even ask for it.
Yeah.
It was just a way to get us to fail again.
Yeah,
And
it
then
was
they
a ploy.
didn't
Yeah.
really need it.
Yeah.
They just were trying to get us to fail.
Yeah, they were just doing that because I mean, they knew what was going on, so why would they even have to do that again? That's kind of silly.
And then
So
I came back and got the perfect score on the SAT, and I'm like, wow, they really, had it handed to them.
During those 504 meetings, not a single administration or anyone congratulated me. No one.
So for the people that don't know, what is a 504? Because we've kind of been talking about that, but for the people listening that don't know.
504 accommodations are for disabled people that don't really need what's it called? The IEP.
Yeah, IEPs.
Yeah, okay.
You need services. So
Like extra time and
Yeah.
things like that.
Right. Okay. Okay.
It's not as involved as someone with an IEP. It's like an IEP light.
Right. So you're about to leave the school this year, correct? At the end of the year? Now, I know we talked about kind of the hostility that just happened with that. Has it gotten any better? I know they can't come near you or anything, but how are I know you said the teachers were, they treated you fairly well. Is everything pretty much okay besides those two people, or?
Everyone else besides not congratulating me on the SATs are pretty nice to me.
I mean, it's just when the article came out on the front page of the Providence Journal,
Yeah.
everything changed. The way the superintendent contacted me, everything changed. She's not allowed to be around. They're not allowed to be around Hannah Shaney and Rob Travis, but the superintendent changed a lot in her views of Hannah and how Hannah is treated at the school. Of course, they're going to do that. They didn't do it when they should have done it. They did it, in my mind, much too late.
Why do you feel like these people weren't fired for these actions?
I wanted Shaney Wallace to be fired. I, was talked to the superintendent many, many times. She kept saying it's really not up to her to, do that. But I don't know why they weren't fired. I don't think they should ever be around children. Rob Travers, the way he told her she wasn't going to school, he'd been her guidance counselor for 4 years. I mean,
More than 4 years.
Yeah, what kind of a human being? A person that's supposed to be guiding children it would be such a monster. I remember when we won, I saw him at our gym and I walked by and I waved and I said, "Hey, we'll see you in school in the fall." He was not happy. And then when she got the SAT score, it was in the paper. I dropped it on his desk. Here's the paper. Here's the paper.
But how was he toward you, Hannah, before all this happened?
He was great before it happened.
No.
It was fine. And then one day it just...
Like the year before she got a brain surgery and she was a junior, he was helping her with colleges. And then he just...
It's weird.
I don't, part of me thinks they don't believe she's sick because the way she looks. It's hard for people with invisible illnesses to be believed. We've been through it with doctors. We've been through it with, just about family members. Her dad at one point didn't believe her. So, I'm thinking, do they not believe her? Do they think that we're gaming them? And I don't know why.
But if you have doctor's notes and you did do that brain surgery.
Brain surgery on somebody who's not sick. I don't know, but I don't know. We don't know what to think of. She's never been in trouble a day in her life. She's always been a straight A student. She's the kind of kid you want to have in class. She wants to learn. She's engaged in the work that she's doing. I honestly don't understand it. I would love someday to get to the bottom of what really was going on in their minds.
And why would somebody want to stay in high school if they could move on to the next level?
And it's such a great high school, high performing, and
I mean, just
fumbling.
I don't understand. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I didn't feel like I was given the same opportunities as the kids that aren't disabled. I only got those 24 credits. I didn't get those extra 4 classes that look good to other colleges, to good colleges I wanted to go to. I didn't get to apply to colleges because they didn't tell me. It was just, I didn't feel like they just took my opportunities away from me. They
could have destroyed her whole, the trajectory of her future. If we didn't win.
Was there any talk of lawsuits though against the city or the school, or for that matter? All right, we'll keep that as a no comment. That'll be off the air for that. Anyway, I want to move on though. I know you said that you're looking at college. Now, how do you feel that's going to go when you graduate at the end of the year and they do the diploma ceremony? And will you be nervous to walk up there? Will that be a happy moment for you when you see people sitting in the front row? I assume the principal is going to give you the diploma. How is that going to work?
I'm really excited about that because it's just rubbing it in her face that I got to stay.
But is she going to be able to give you the diploma if she's not allowed to be near you? How does that work?
I assume she's just handing a diploma.
Yeah, that's not like talking to her.
Oh, okay. So she can give her the diploma then.
I am very excited to do that.
I'm excited too.
Hey, whatever works. At least you'll be out of there and you can move on. Now, you talked about going to college, and I did hear from your mom and read in the article about that you want to study the disease in college and try to fix that. I did see in the article back in November too, you were looking at Brown or Harvard now. Have you looked? I mean, college acceptance is coming, around the corner. Have you looked at any other schools? Are those the 2 main schools? What's going on with that?
Those are the 2 main schools, but I applied to also Boston College, Providence College, and Tufts University.
Okay. And now you haven't heard back from any schools yet? I don't really know what the time periods are, but.
I applied regular decision, so I should be hearing by the end of March.
Okay. All right, great. And hopefully you'll get into one of the, well, any of those schools is great, but you can rub that in those people's faces. So that'll be exciting for you to get into one of those schools, especially with the SAT score and the grade point average.
Success, right? Or living well, isn't that what they say? There's no
Yeah,
better.
that's true. So what are the goals? I know we talked about your goals in life. So with, trying to cure these diseases that you and your sister have and studying those, is that your main goal in life, or do you have other goals in life? What would those be?
That's my main goal in life so far. I haven't come up with anything else yet.
Okay.
Think about it. Maybe I've been very flip-flop with what I want to do. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to stick with this, but you never know.
She really likes biology. She really likes the sciences and math. So this is something that.
Yeah, medicine, yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if she were physically better, I think that she would have, she talked about being a doctor a lot. And so I think that she would have probably, if she weren't struggling to stay on her feet for any length of time, she would have been a doctor.
So last question, and then I want to get into the foundation organization that you built, Patricia. We talked a lot about the conditions, and with you and your sister and the 2 different conditions. How will that affect going on in college now? We you told us what happened with East Providence. How will that affect in what college you go to? Did you base that into what college you're going to? I know you said Brown and Harvard, and you're looking at these other schools, PC and Tufts. Did you base that on where you want to go to school, being closer to home, or did that have any effect?
I did only apply to schools that are within an hour of home because I do need to be close to my doctors and to my mom.
True.
And so that was a factor in what I needed to do. And I am hoping for Brown because of their open curriculum, which will help a lot physically.
And also she looked at schools that were in
biology.
Yeah.
Right. Has Brown communicated, or any of those schools communicated? I know you haven't heard back, but communicated with any kind of words of encouragement?
I did have my Brown interview actually last week.
And how do you feel that went?
I think it went well. I hope it went well.
that was a phone interview or in person?
In person.
Okay, great. All right. So Patricia, let's get back to you. All right. So beyond the diagnosis, where did you get the idea, and where did it start from?
Well, because it took Olivia, 18 years to get the correct diagnosis. Diagnosis time is a huge issue for me. And I wanted to find a way that was a way we could be in medical schools without being so scarce, so like, okay, this isn't not, we're not really studying this. We touch upon these rare diseases, but we don't really delve into them.
Right.
I wanted to, a young girl came to me and she wanted to paint a portrait for a high school project. And she asked if she could do someone with a rare disease. Did I know a child with a rare disease? And and I thought, oh my God, I wonder if we can put out a call to art, and then we can create this, tiny exhibit and travel. And we had 17 portraits when we went to Brown University, and it just was so well received that we started looking for more artists. And by the time our next venue was Harvard, and by then we had 35 portraits. And Harvard did a press release, and it got picked up by the Boston Globe. So we had a print story in the Boston Globe. Boston Magazine did a story, Stat News, Today.com, and then right after that, CBS Sunday Morning called, and I thought it was a joke. I thought it was my girlfriend, and so they did a story on us on CBS Sunday Morning, and we had like 7 million viewers. And it exploded, and right now we're at a point where we have about 120 portraits, and we can't meet the demand.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. No one's ever done. It was kind of an accident, really, the way it happened. So we go to medical schools. We go every year. We go to the FDA. We go to the NIH. Last year, we unveiled a portrait at the NIH of one of the kids that is being seen at the NIH. And we go to Children's Alabama, we go to Quinnipiac and the Broad Institute. And what we do is make sure that these venues never get the same portrait twice. So most of them take around 10 to 15 portraits. So, that it's a logistical nightmare to try to figure out. I have a program that helps me, but figure out, this portrait, and my other daughter, Olivia, will help me, that we don't send the same portrait twice. And we're always looking for artists. We're always looking for new patients. We've gone from, only working with artists in the United States to actually in Rhode Island, we started. And now we work with artists from all over the world. We have artists from Thailand and Bali and Poland. And now we have kids from all over the world. We have kids from Botswana and Ghana, and we're going to do a little girl from Iraq and Ireland. So, and we just unveiled last Rare Disease Day, we unveiled a portrait in Ireland. So that was really cool.
Now, are you running this all by yourself, or do you have a team, or?
I run it mostly, but a lot of what we do is we use outside contractors. So most of it is done, like the shipping, all that stuff. We use an outside contractor for a lot of the work that has to be done, like framing and things like that.
All right. And 2 more questions, and I appreciate the time. How is Olivia doing? We didn't really talk too much about her. We did a little bit. What is she doing now? If you can talk about her a little bit also.
Olivia is doing well. She still is struggling with, muscle spasms, but we're only a month out. So we're hoping that she goes back to school in the fall.
And where is she going to school now?
She goes to Rick.
Okay.
So, we can't, I learned a long time ago with these guys, planning that far ahead isn't, we do plan for things, but we also know that it could change, that our plans, could change. So we have to keep that in mind.
And what is she studying at Rick?
She wants to be a therapist and work with young, chronically ill people.
Great. No, I appreciate that. I wanted to get an update on her also. And so where can people find more about Beyond the Diagnosis?
We have a great website with lots of beautiful content. It's beyondthediagnosis.org. They can see if there's somebody with a rare disease out there that we haven't covered yet. Actually, there's a list of the diseases that we represent already, because there's 7,000 rare diseases. We can't do more than one portrait per disease. Otherwise, we want to put a face to all these diseases. So there's an application for artists on the website. We've gotten so much press surrounding, we've been even in the Lancet, which is the oldest and most prestigious medical journal. And they contacted me and said, hey, we want to do a story on Beyond the Diagnosis. When it goes to a venue, like we're doing an event for Rare Disease Day where the Boston Globe will be there. So we get a lot of, it is done exactly what we hoped it would do, and then some. It has humanized these kids to, millions and millions of people that otherwise would not have ever even heard about rare diseases or, known. I find that throwing statistics out, like, 15 million kids in the United States have a rare disease, and most of them don't have a treatment. Fewer than 5% have a treatment. So it's horrific. I think of it as a health crisis. If you're letting kids suffer and die in the United States and, without a treatment, that just is, to me, it's horrendous. It just shouldn't be like this for us. But because of the misunderstanding and the lack of general awareness surrounding what our lives are really like, there's some great things happening out there. Like there's these other two dads that started a film festival where they show movies about rare diseases. I think these visual arts, a way to connect with people is really helping our cause, because right now we don't have the empathy of the general public. We don't have the understanding. They need to understand before they can empathize with us, like they do with children with cancer, which is easy. We know when we see a child that's lost their hair that that's from the chemo treatment. So it's hard for people who look like Hana to get that same kind of empathy, despite what she's going through.
And I think that's a big part of it. Like you said, if you don't look like you have a certain illness or a disease, then as you said,
I can't tell you how many doctors have, they don't understand it, so they dismiss it.
Yeah, it's really sad. But Hana, I'm going to end with this. Congratulations, and hopefully you'll get into one of those schools. I know you'll get into one of them at least. So we're going to keep track of you and make sure we hear more from you once you get into the school. And I'd love to hear once you graduate, we'll do a little interview about that and see where you're going and what happened at the graduation. Hopefully there's nothing too intense rather.
Yeah. We'll be chill.
Yeah.
We just want to get out of there.
No, I hear you. Well, and I'm happy we finally made time for this, Patricia, and I appreciate that. You kept me in the loop on that. And the other interview with the doctor was great too. I forgot his name that you gave me. The guy with the heart doctor.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he was great too. So, but thanks so much, guys. I'll let you go, and we will definitely keep in contact. And hope to talk to you guys soon. I appreciate the time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And this now.